Hi. Long time no see.
Hello, Lindsay.
Hi, Peter. Hi, Charity. While we wait for a couple people to hop on here, then we'll go ahead and get started with our live stream of the day, how forest gardens are fostering the support local movement. We've got Charity in Uganda, Peter in Kenya, myself, Lindsay, in the States. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please go ahead and drop your comments and questions in the comments section. We're really excited to hear from you and any questions you have about this very important topic. While we get ready, hi Pam, hey Kendall. While we get ready, I wanted each of you to drop in the comments either where you're joining us from or maybe what you're growing in your own farm or garden right now. So let us know. We'd love to see what everybody's cooking up. So my name's Lindsay. I'm on the Trees for the Future marketing team here at headquarters. I work with the marketing team to tell the stories of farmers in conjunction with liaisons, Charity included. We often reach out to you all through emails, on social media, telling you about the impact that you have. I myself have a background in journalism where I covered farming in the Midwest, in the United States, in Kansas. So I want to toss it over to Peter to introduce himself, and then Charity, and then we will get started with our live stream. So Peter, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. How are you, everyone? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. This is Peter Kingori. Peter Kingori works for Trees for the Future in the Department of Training. So in the Department of Training, I train our staff in the best facilitation styles and skills. I also train our partners, our collaborators, so that they can assist us in achieving our objective of planting many trees, which will be of assistance to the farmers. I also give support to our staff in terms of making them more confident, more competent in what they do, and also observing how they offer their trainings to the farmers so that our message and our objective clearly reaches our farmers and it is seen to be implemented. And see that we are able to assist this community, beat up hunger, generate a bit of income, make sure our soil is also producing, make sure that we also servicing our environment to make everything workable. So in the training department, that is what I assist in, and also making some reviews in our training tools to make them as efficient as it is and as it's possible. Thank you, Lindsay.
Fantastic. Thank you, Peter. And Charity, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? This is Charity's second time on a live stream with us, so we're so glad to have you back. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at Trees.
Thanks, Lindsay. I'm so excited to be here for the second time. Thank you so much. So I'm Charity Naloga, and I work with Trees for the Future, definitely. I'm a communications and development liaison for Uganda. And yeah, just a brief something about what I do. I interact with farmers a lot. That's a big part of my role. I'm in charge of profiling our work here in Uganda. So that basically talks about talking to farmers, working with staff to make sure that our work is out there and it's heard and you're seeing what we are doing in Uganda. So yeah, that's mainly. I have a lot of field work. So because yeah, involves a lot of traveling and meeting with farmers and talking to them and sharing their experiences with me, so we can be able to share with all of you what exactly we are doing in Uganda specifically. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for you both, it's been tough for everyone, it's been tough this last year and a half, but as Kenya and Uganda are currently taking extra precautions with COVID, we're so glad that you're home and safe and can join us for this live stream and tell everybody about the impact they're having while we wait to get back out into the field and meet with farmers safely. So thank you for being here. I see everybody commenting their locations. I don't think I've seen anyone tell me what they're growing. So I'll start. I am harvesting peaches right now with my dad, and I brought some for the staff. So there's only like 3 of us in office right now. So I see we've got people from all over the States. We've got people in Europe. I see the UK. We have Senegal, Cameroon, Tanzania. So thank you all for joining us. As you all know, Trees for the Future is really a global community. We're headquartered in the US, but we have offices in Kenya, in Uganda, Tanzania, Senegal, and newly Mali. We also work in several other sub-Saharan countries with collaborative partners who have offices in those countries. So our reach is very wide, and we're able to meet with a lot of farmers to provide forest garden training and regenerative agriculture training. But today we really want to talk about how local our work really is. And so for those of you who don't know, Trees for the Future is a regenerative agriculture organization. We train farmers to restore their land, to regenerate their soil so that they can lift themselves out of hunger and poverty. And it all comes back to agroforestry and permaculture. And so Peter, as he mentioned, is a training on the training team. And so Peter and training staff like him work closely with farmers to train them in these methods and techniques to rebuild their land. And so how that is, you know, supporting the local movement might not be immediately clear. And that's why we wanted to talk with you all today about the different elements of that support local movement that Trees for the Future and our program are supporting. So when we talk about support local and why is it important, you know, we see a lot of organizations go to different regions or different countries where they might not know the cultural context. And that's what's incredible about Trees for the Future, because as we're talking today, we're talking with 2 staff members who are from the region, from the area where they work, and they're working closely with farmers where, you know, you speak the language, you know the culture, you know all of these different elements that are important to making these programs last, right? And so we wanted to share a couple things from different leaders in this space. And the World Bank often talks about community-driven development, and community-driven development is basically programs that operate on the principles of transparency, participation, accountability, and enhanced local capacity. And so we're going to get into local capacity a lot today, and local staff and farmer-led programs. GiveWell, a nonprofit organization and fundraising group, says well-intended projects can fail if they're not well-suited to local conditions. And that is so key in Trees for the Future's work. We are very aware of the local conditions because of the local staff, because of the attention to the local context. So before we jump to local staff, I wanted to start with the farmer, because the farmer is at the front of our minds at all times at Trees for the Future, right? So one of the most unique and sustainable aspects of Trees for the Future's program is the importance placed on farmer and farmer training. So Peter, can you give us a brief overview of the forest garden approach and how you and the training team train forest garden farmers?
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, as you clearly put it, forest garden is geared towards alleviating poverty, alleviating hunger, and also regenerating our soils. So forest garden, in its simplest term, we have the term forest and the garden. That is trees for the forest, the garden for the crops, growing together with the farm around to see how this mission of alleviating hunger and income generation can work. Trees for the Future have crafted a very good approach on how this can be achieved along a 4-year period. So one major aspect is to bring farmers on board. So when the farmers are on board, that is through mobilizing, working with the government, working with the opinion leaders, working with the community leaders, delivering the message about the forest garden. Then when we have the people on board, we are able now to move to the training. So forest garden is clustered in some 3 good phases, which are very active, and one of them is protection. So protection, we need to have our land protected. When you are coming in to plant your crops, your small trees, you don't want interference, you don't want animals to eat up your land, you don't want people to interfere with your activities. So we need to protect our land so that we can now engage into the other activities of the forest garden. So protection is an activity we train farmers to carry on in the first year and a bit of the second year, as they still continue a little bit of their work in their forest garden, putting up trees around the what we call the life fence or the green wall, along the alleys, making sure there are suitable trees that could also be friendly to us as they are fixing nitrogen, and areas where farmers can do that. So in this case, at this time round, this is where you also train farmers how to design their land, how to map their land, so that every element of the forest garden suits the whole space that the forest garden should occupy. We keep in mind that forest garden maximizes use of space. So we are talking of the horizontal space, you're talking of the vertical space, you're talking of the space along the year calendar to make sure this farmer is able to at least harvest something from the forest garden. So when they have protected their land and everything is in order, then maybe probably initially they were doing one or two crops. Then we want them to get into some diversification, add more crops so that if a crop fails, the farmer has another one they can pick from to eat or to sell. So nothing is lost along the way. So this is where now we train them on how to diversify and they make sure they have a lot of crops while they are also incorporating these many trees that we need them put along the green wall, along the alleys, selection of high value fruit trees, which will also serve as income generating as also nutritional supplies for the family. Then that is in the second and the third year. Then in the fourth year, things need to be cleaned out very well and make sure that the forest garden can move on. And once the farmer finishes the rest of the 4 years, can still continue adopting and holding and owning the forest garden as it pleases. And this is where now we talk of how do you fill up all the gaps that there could be in terms of how you're using your horizontal space, in terms of how you're using your resources that are available, maybe water, sunlight, and all the resources that you need to make sure that your land is good. So you're also making sure you're not short of everything. So what we are creating is a balance of a straight graph where the farmer is able to harvest and eat every time suitably without having a low or an extensive high, but have a maximum where nothing is lost and nothing is missed. So this is where we optimize and make sure that the farmers are able to get everything from that forest garden. And from that end, we have now the graduation process where farmers now graduate and we see them move ahead and plant it forward with whatever they've been doing without a lot of support from Trees for the Future, making sure they sustainably and adopt and own what they have been taken through the 4-year forest garden approach.
And when Peter, you say, when we talk about a 4-year training program, but then as you said, when farmers graduate, unfortunately, we haven't had a graduation ceremony this past year, but we're looking forward to getting those back up and running when it's appropriate. But after the farmers graduate, because the program is so intensive and thoughtful, farmers are able to move on from the program with continued success in their forest garden. And so, Peter, how is the 4-year training program through Trees for the Future different from other programs in that it is farmer-led? Tell us a little bit about how the farmer is playing a really integral role in deciding what happens in their forest garden over the 4 years of training.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, the first thing we need to do and what we do is to make sure that the forest garden activity and approach is owned by the farmers themselves. We let them develop what they need to develop. We don't enforce, we don't put anything into their throat that they don't need. And this is clearly done when they have a dream of what they want to achieve in the 4 years. So we'll take them through a good process of visualizing. This is my land that I own. Where do I want it to be in the next 4 years? So a good design, which is owned by that farmer, will help that farmer move on the 4 years with a blueprint that he can follow, making sure he's inserting everything that he needs. So our part here is to support that farmer grow based on what they feel is best for them. So we mentor, we tell them, okay, this is not a very good suitable tree for you to grow. This is the most suitable because it will fix the soils with the nitrogen. This is where you can put your woodlot. This is where you can put your perma garden, where you can grow your crops. This is how you can intercrop. This is how you can companion plant. So ours is to guide them in that congregation that we call training, but it is not like we need to teach them, or we are not teachers, but we are engaging them, facilitating them, capacity building them to go into a different kind of a smart agriculture, which solves the issues of hunger and poverty. So that kind of owning the project makes it different, because we don't want to tell them, grow these, we want to pay you for these, we want to push you to do this. Can you do it and become part of the whole project? So for us, we mentor you and make you move forward. In case you want anything, just get to us, get the information, you're good to go. So we don't have any prescribed way that this is the way it should be done. We only mentor and guide, following a good, smart agricultural system. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Charity, as you work closely to hear from farmers and tell their stories, what do they tell you about the training design and their part in it, that they are creating these dream maps that we just saw on the screen a moment ago, and being able to grow what they can eat and sell, not being told or suggested what to grow or sell?
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. So I think from farmer interactions, the first thing that stands out, exactly as we've seen the design on the screen, that's something that's different for these farmers, because they're able to, let's say would call it a farmer-led design. They're able to design their own forest garden together with their technicians who are training them, and see how this is going to come to life. You know, they are planning for this piece of land, 1 acre or whatever it is, and they can see that I'm going to plant this here, I'm going to plant this here, this is what I'm going to get from here. And I feel like the personalization is what's speaking to farmers, because they can tell you, I'll give you a brief history. For most of these farmers, they are planting one crop for before you come in. You'll find that, for example, outside the north, you'll find that there are a lot of farmers who are planting soy, for example. It's a very common crop there. Sunflower also, it's a dominant crop in the north. So those projects, for example, and as well as Mount Elgon, because Mount Elgon, we have a lot of bananas. So you'll find that farmers are monocropping on this piece of land. They're just growing that one crop because it's what's selling. Maybe they are selling to a manufacturer somewhere. But when you come in with this different approach and you're telling them you can actually utilize your land like this and harvest all these different types of crops as you are protecting it also, on your own, deciding, because you don't drop all the crops. They can keep some of them. We're just telling you don't have to have bananas only. See, it works better if you have this and this and this. And they're very receptive. They're very positive towards it. In the first few months, you feel like it doesn't make sense, like any other thing. When it's new, you don't see how it's going to work. But the beauty about the forest garden is within 3 to 6 months of starting, you can see that there's a change on my piece of land. If I'm able to harvest throughout the year, I don't have to wait for seasons. I can harvest something every 3 months from my piece of land. Every month I can take out something. That makes sense, and it speaks to farmers, and this is what they are looking for. So yeah, it's the way the response is good. I'll say it's very positive, because a lot of farmers will be honest. They'll tell you, no, me at first I didn't think, but then by the time you see them, after year one, it's a whole other story. Only good.
Only good. Yeah. And Charity, you'll share quotes with me that say, I wasn't so sure, from a farmer, I wasn't so sure. We've had international organizations show up in the past and tell us what we should do, and then, like you said, in a few months of training and sharing their ideas, it's a real shift in what they're looking forward to growing on their property and establishing their forest garden. So let's get to our next support local item. For all of those just joining us, I'm Lindsay. I'm joined by Peter, our training coordinator in Kenya, Charity, our marketing and development liaison in Uganda, and we're talking about how forest gardens foster the support local movement. And we started with how Trees for the Future and the Forest Garden program is built around the farmer and how farmers really inform and lead the discussion about what is going to happen on their land. And next stop on our support local movement train is local staff. So with Trees for the Future, we are, as I said at the beginning, a global organization. We employ nearly 200 people across 6 countries: the US, Senegal, Mali, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. When farmers receive training, they're working with the training staff who are from their country and often from their same region. So Peter, what are the benefits of hiring local to train farmers?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, one good thing is that Trees for the Future embraces the local arrangements of the people. They don't want to come and defranchise what people have been doing. So we give regard to what people are and how they've been living. So we integrate that to our approach. So the benefit of hiring local trainers and local staff there, one is because of language. We are bringing on board persons probably who are not very certain with the foreign language. They have been speaking their own language. And now the staff are aware of the language. They can communicate well. They can deliver the information very well, clearly. They will read from our books in English, but put that in the local native language and practice it the way the farmers can understand. The other benefit is that these people also understand the landscapes they are going to work in. They know, they are quite familiar with some of the challenges the farmers are facing. So when they come to assist the farmers, they're already aware of where to start from. So the landscape is clear to them. Again, we also have the cultural backgrounds. So we know where to start off. When you bring a foreigner or a different person from another place, might bring conflict in terms of culture. You want to maybe some places don't allow one gender to be in this position or another gender to be in this position. So these people, the local people, can clearly tell, if we are now electing new leaders, we have to follow this rule, this path, this way, and make things work. So also make sure that because they are aware, they embrace everybody. So then it is easy to connect with them. It's easy to mobilize the people. They know the landscape, unlike a newer person from a different landscape. So with the local people, everything moves very fast. They also know who to talk to. Who do I speak to? Who is the opinion leader? Who is this person who can mobilize people very fast? And again, this is key to communities. They most likely love one of their own. They feel they've been touched and they can move along with them. So then if you brought another person, it's supported by this local one who will say, this is our friend working with us, but if I tell you we go this way, this is the way to go. So in terms of believing, it is easier for them to believe in. So this is not a fake project that will just be brought in. It is something we can go ahead with our own girl, with our own boy. This is something we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you. And the photo we just saw at the end of Peter's sharing was a training of trainers event. And so local staff are trained by coordinators like Peter and his team, and making sure that staff have the knowledge that they need to pass on to the farmer. And then exactly what Peter said, having the language, having the cultural context, being aware of differences that someone from an outside country or region might not realize immediately. Charity, I'm really excited for you to share, really the case study of Uganda. Your country has so many different languages, so many different niche cultures, and Uganda really provided a learning opportunity for Trees for the Future. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened in trees over the last couple of years as we moved into Mount Elgon in different areas of the country.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. So I think we have about over 40 languages spoken here in this tiny country, and we have over 50 tribes. So that's 50 tribes will tell you, and over 40 languages will tell you different cultures. People are doing things differently. It's a mix of so many things. So even if, no matter how small it is, they're just divided in so many different blocks. So that alone poses a threat for, if you're trying to enter these communities, you have to be very careful. So some of our initial projects that graduated last year, our projects in the north, that's Lira and Kole, northern Uganda, they I think they were like Lindsay mentioned, they were the teaching point. They provided a learning opportunity for trees, because we had some staff that were coming from, for example, Central, and they are now moving and working in the north, which of course, by the end of the 4 years, it was a whole other story. They'd gotten used to the farmers, but now the initial process of adopting and getting into this society to train farmers, when you're coming all the way from the Central to train farmers in the north, the language is very different. They are speaking Langi, and then you're coming from a Luganda speaking area. So it's a whole, nobody can hear the other person. So it's all different. And that of course is going to, it's going to take time. You learn, definitely people learn, the longer you stay in a place, you learn, but it takes some time, getting to, understand the locals, understand how they like things done, the culture, what fits in the Central might not fit in the north, things like that. So I think one of the wins, and I'll mention this, that northern people are very good at speaking English. So I think that was the biggest advantage. So when our technicians came in, they were able to communicate with farmers. Even when I travel, I still travel there to work, to check on our Plant It Forward project. But even when you travel, you can talk to a farmer in English without any, they speak fluent English. So the local language came in secondary because you have to learn it. But yeah, this helped. So now going into Mount Elgon, which is now in the east, I think now you can see, we started recruiting people from there, which made it much easier. We have staff members that are from Bududa. We have a project in Bududa, we have in Manua. Now imagine somebody working, like Peter mentioned, imagine somebody working in Bududa when their home village is from there, or they grew up there, or they can speak the language. People have seen them maybe when they were little. There's that, they can relate. So it makes it much easier. Everything that Peter said is exactly that's the win on our end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes, local staff and the ability of all of your teams on the ground to be able to connect with farmers and to be able to see that change happening in their own countries, I think is really powerful. So we have 3 more support local points we have to get to. So I'm going to try to move us along, and we'll come back. Please, in the comments, let us know if you have any questions about farmer-led elements of our program or local staff. And now, Peter and Charity, let's move on to locally sourcing resources for every forest garden project. So one of the most common questions that we receive, especially through social media questions, is where do we get our seeds or our trees? So Peter, can you briefly tell us where and how we source the seeds, materials, resources that are then passed on to the farmers in our program?
Yeah, one unique thing about trees is that in sourcing their materials and making sure the farmers get the materials right, is that we source them locally and supporting the local community, supporting the local businesses. So the seeds will be sourced probably from the government, but we also train our farmers to also be able to send some seeds, so that when we want some seeds, we can still go to them and collect the seeds from them. In one way, we're also motivating them. When you're telling them to plant these many thousands of trees, what are some of the benefits? Maybe they had thought initially the only thing I can get from a tree is timber, probably, or fuel wood. But it comes again, this seed can be sold and be able to meet some of the basic needs of the family. So local sourcing becomes very key with the trees for the future, unlike others who would like to import things from elsewhere. So even with our tubes that we want the farmers to use in doing the nurseries are locally sourced. They are done with us, and we also supporting businesses. So local sourcing here becomes very key. They make sure that we also assist farmers to know how to store the seeds, to test their germination. Again, the materials, the tools they will use also are locally available in each particular country. So if you're working in Kenya, we'll be able to buy the supplies here in Kenya. Uganda, the same will do it from Uganda. Tanzania will do it from Tanzania, and that supports the local communities in making sure the life is also changing, not only in making them feed or have income, but also support other stakeholders, other partners who come in here. Then some of these seeds that we purchase, they are suitable for the local environment. So you won't take a seed from America and come and plant in Kenya if it is not suitable. You'll only plant it if it is proved that it is a new entrant that can come in and can adopt to that environment and support in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, in Kenya, we have this fruit that is now being grown very large. It's called the dragon fruit, which probably is from China. It's a cactus family. You've been seeing cactus growing everywhere. So once it's introduced, we are seeing it generate a lot of income for the community and for the people who are doing it. But is it suitable for our soils? Is it suitable for our forest gardens? So those are the aspects that we look into the local sourcing of materials, seeds, and other supplies that we need to pass to our local farmers.
Mm-hmm. So, Peter, you said, it supports local businesses, which is something that might not always be an immediate connection for folks. As Trees for the Future staff in each country, order watering cans or wheelbarrows or different tools, whatever it may be, that's supporting the local economy, not just, rebuilding and improving the food system as well, And then also Peter mentioned farmers' ability to learn how to grow. Obviously, through their training, they're learning how to grow their own trees, their own seedlings, and they often become local suppliers. So Charity, tell us a little bit about Josek and what he has done in selling his own seeds and seedlings as really a side business to his farming.
So Josek, I love Josek because he's one of our staff farmers. He's from our Busia 3 project. That's somewhere in the far east, almost, it's a border town. It's bordering Kenya and Uganda. So he's in our Busia 3 project, and that's Josek. he's I think he joined last year, beginning of 2020. It was a difficult year, but we were able to give these farmers, they were new, very new, alongside the on phone training, because we were training through phones and videos. We were not interacting with farmers much, but we were able to also supply mainly collard greens and cabbages, a few vegetables for farmers to grow within that period, because we were in lockdown, to maybe help them get through that season with a bit of ease.
Mm-hmm.
So Joseph did so well with his collard greens. He harvested. I visited him earlier this year around February. He harvested about 60 kilograms of amaranthus. Yes, we call it dodo here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for those who are watching and they know what dodo is. Yes, so he harvested 60 kilograms. Josek has a big family. I think he has about 11 children. So I was talking to him about how he feeds them, first of all. And he gave me that example and told me, I harvested all these, I harvested all these kilos. I took them to the town, and I was able to mix them with soy to make porridge for my children for breakfast. Furthermore, I was able to keep some and get this. He's still harvesting. He can sell to fellow farmers, farmers that are outside the project. He distributed some to those that are within his farmer group, and then sold some. So he's selling these seeds to farmers who are not growing this crop on their pieces of land. And he did not expect this to be an income generating activity like that. You know, he thought maybe, okay, yeah, I'm going to feed my family more, but now he's making money from it, which is now sustaining the home as well. I have another farmer that I'm so proud of. She's called Modesta. Modesta is in our Mount Elgon 1 project, and she's working in, that's Manafwa district, Mount Elgon 1. I love this lady because she went for her compost training from our technicians, Christine and Bernard, and she did not go back from there. She understood it so well that she started making compost on a large scale to sell to farmers in her village. So I'm going to make the compost for you. You just have to pay me to supply it. So yeah, you can improve your yields. And this has pushed her to. I met Modesta in May, like 2 months ago, and she was telling me how she's educated her first son through university. That's the first graduate in their family through this, because the third year she has been with us for a year. The third year, that money came from the money that she was getting from the compost making. And this is just one unit of the forest garden training, like Peter had mentioned. It's just one unit. So you can see how farmers are already making money, and these people are just 1 year old into this. So imagine what theirs is going to look like.
Yeah. Yes, we're so excited for that story. Charity's working on it. We'll be able to share it soon. But we do have Josek's story on our website, so we can share that in the comments, and definitely go and see what Josek has been working on, and see his kids and how they're all working together on their forest garden. So when we talk about locally sourcing, it's really just this incredible cycle of supporting local businesses, supporting the local economy, and then farmers are able to build the local economy on their own, or do their part to build the local economy, I should say, and offering things like seeds, like compost to their neighbors, and really just strengthening the region as a whole. So let's continue kind of hustling through. I don't want to fall over time, but Peter started mentioning a little bit about native species. Another frequently asked question is, what kind of trees do we plant? And we have a full list of all of the trees that we plant, all of the fruits and vegetables that we plant. But it's such an important question, and it applies to the trees and the vegetables and the fruits and the grains. Peter, how do we determine what we plant in each region, and why?
Yeah, thank you. One unique thing that we do is that, as we said, forest garden is farmer driven. It is not organization driven, but farmer driven. So we want farmers to just grow what they think is best, but we come in to assist them to make sure what they also choose is suitable to their lands, it's also suitable to their soils, and also has value production. We don't want them to waste a lot of time planting things that are not so good for them, and maybe eventually need to cut them out. So the kind of thing we do is that we train technicians to engage these farmers a lot to make sure whatever is sourced, whatever is brought is farmer guided, having observed their locality. They know maybe we have this tree that was growing earlier on, it's no longer growing, so trees will go out of its way and get the seeds to them. Again, we also, in our own end, we look also what it could be very suitable for them and how beneficial that can be. So planting seeds elsewhere becomes very key, in that we are guided by what the farmers have been doing, incorporating our knowledge and our ideas so that we bring species that could only be good for them, high value species, good for the soils, good for the crops to accommodate in. Again, our whole forest garden approach is made in a way that is acceptable in every other region. It is not a cast on stone, this is what you should do, this is what you should grow, but tailored to fit in one area where we are working in. So when you're working here in Kenya, we have two regions, Kiambu, we have Homa Bay. So what works in Homa Bay, it could not work in Kiambu, or what works in Sigida, maybe it cannot work in Tabora. So it is tailored to make sure that whatever is grown is suitable to that place, has value to the farmer, has value to the soils, because we also need to maintain this great median of the soil. We don't want to take all the nutrients out of it by planting trees that will not fix back some of the nutrients they have taken. So we regard the nitrogen fixers, the nutrient fixers species a lot into the forest garden. So determination is farmer-led, but we guide on the suitability of what they need to put. The farmer-led could be a bit drifted, but we put the farmers in straight line that, yes, you said this, you said eucalyptus gets a lot of money, but eucalyptus will spoil your soil, will not let your plants grow. It has those acids that will kill your soil. So probably we have another tree that could suitably come in instead of the eucalyptus, but still maintain your soil and maintain your crops.
We hear a lot about eucalyptus trees being planted in mass to try to reforest areas. And as Peter said, the native species, the trees that work to provide something for the farmer as well as for the land and for the soil are so important, rather than something like eucalyptus planted in rows and rows and rows, which isn't going to long-term benefit the land or the farmer. Charity, can you tell us what a forest garden looks like a few years in, when all of these native and naturalized species are really just taking root and taking off?
Thanks, Lindsay. So I think for like I mentioned, because some of our projects, we've had 2 so far that have graduated, and then we have those that are now in their second year that joined last year. So the biggest takeaway for us, or the biggest the difference that you'll see just a year later or a couple of months later is how the forest garden is now harboring all these different crops. If you saw a farmer, if you found a farmer planting maize just at the beginning, and now you can ably see that they have all these vegetables, all these fruits, because we also incorporate fruit trees. We have agroforestry trees, like Peter mentioned, all these different things. We have cabbages. Somebody is keeping some bananas in there. They are growing some sweet potatoes. It's a whole concoction of different crops, for lack of a better word, concoction of different crops that are benefiting farmers in the best way possible. Because if you're growing some vegetables, you can couple them with some bananas or some sweet potatoes, cassava, and this is improving diet. Aside from families are feeding better. They are going out there. Yes. Joseph's children on the screen. Absolutely love them. So they're for example, they are holding stems for yams. These are used to plant yams. When you're planting yams, this is what you use. Yes. So imagine their forest garden where they work with their dad. This forest garden has yams, it has agroforestry trees, it has oranges, it has tangerines, it has mangoes, it has bananas, it has beans, it has collard greens, all these things. It has sukuma wiki, yes. All these things that they are planting and harvesting at the same time. These are not people that are going to go hungry because they are planting just one crop, or they have to buy to diversify their diet. They can harvest and feed off of the forest garden and still make some extra money. So I think that for us is what stands out, and that's what you see from farmer feedback. That change from one crop and buying to this piece of land that's just so rich with food.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that's the perfect segue into our fifth local element of the forest garden, and I think one that everyone can relate to. And so, we've touched on farmer-led, local farmer-driven programs, local staff training and mentoring farmers, locally sourcing seeds, tools, materials, and then, really relying on native species and diverse native species that are going to grow into this beautiful forest garden. And that brings us to our fifth and final element, which is selling locally, selling these foods at local markets. And like I said, we can all relate to this. We all have to eat. When we look at the traditional monocrop practices of farmers around the world, really, I think it's easy for people to forget that sometimes farmers aren't selling to their neighbors. Those foods aren't ending up on the tables of their community members. They're being shipped and sold far, far away. And that's why we see so many people in agricultural based countries still not having enough food to eat. And so, Peter, can you explain how a farmer might sell their harvest before they establish forest gardens? What a monocrop harvest looks like?
Yeah. It like I had earlier said, forest garden diversified. But when you don't have a forest garden on your plot, it means that you don't have that diversification. You don't have a choice or an option of selecting from many crops that you can sell. So what happens is that when you just have one crop, obviously it has a season that will mature and get sold. Probably the same is being done by a neighbor farmer, and you're there now pulling all your products. This one crop, the market is flooded, the prices are low, you're frustrated about farming, you don't want to go to farming again, to agriculture again, because the prices are not just there. So before then, when the forest garden isn't there are challenges in terms of when are we selling and when are we not selling. And the forest garden want to clear that gap, that we are selling probably throughout. We are not just selling when a certain crop matures. This one crop, maybe it's corn, maybe we just have one season. And once that is done, we are no longer selling and we are down in finances, you cannot meet our basic needs. So one challenge about a farmer not practicing a forest garden is that situation of never moving ahead with life, but being like stuck and rotating around the same circular place. At one time you sold, at another time you're down. You're just not moving ahead. But now with the incorporation and integration of the forest garden, there is that drastic change, like Charity has just put it. In just the first 6 months, there is that drastic change because you have a cabbage there, you have corn there, you have your millet somewhere, you have sorghum, you have some fruits you're selling, you're also feeding your livestock, you're selling some milk, you're selling some eggs. You have a diversified options that you can move to the market at any one particular time. The forest garden sustainably and in a kind of a spiral continues helping this family. So
I like that, a spiral.
yeah, unlike the previous way.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So before they have something to sell year round, Charity, what does that look like in the community? Where are people getting their food? What does the market look like in a monocrop culture?
So I think a few minutes ago I talked about how farmers before, if for example, if you're growing maize, or if you're growing some maize on your piece of land, and that's all you're growing and selling maybe at the end of a season, like Peter has mentioned, you're not going to eat maize alone in the home. Or if you're growing soy, it's not the only thing you're going to eat. If you're growing sunflower, this is not actual food, but you're going to you need because you need to eat, you're just, you only harvest maize or sunflower, whatever it is, from your piece of land. You need to buy food. Farmers have to go out and buy food, and we all know how expensive it is to keep buying food. We are working with smallholder farmers. Even for somebody who has a regular, somewhat good income, it's still a very big expense to have to buy food every single day. People who will tell you, maybe you're staying alone, for example, or you're home, it makes more sense to cook at home than to eat out. Just that simple dynamic for people. To go out and eat at a restaurant, it makes more sense to cook food at home and feed all 5 of you. So now look at our farmers. If our farmer has to step out to go and buy food because they only have maize, they can't only feed on maize. Feeding on maize 5 days a week is going to mean that these children don't have a balanced diet, which now transitions to them not feeding properly. So it's a whole cycle of problems. So farmers have to step out and buy food. They go to the market and actually buy food. But once farmers have joined this project, they can grow everything they need. Even when they need to fry some beans that they got from their piece of land, they can fry with the onions and tomatoes that are on their piece of land still. So they are going to have to buy less, but just, you wake up in the morning, and this is something that happens in villages. I see it with farmers. You'll visit them maybe around 9 a.m. They go to the garden so early. You'll find 9 a.m. they're taking tea with some cassava. They've cut some onions together. Yes. And then at lunch, you'll visit others at lunch. They've made some bananas. They've mixed them with beans. Yes. So you're seeing farmers. And then in the afternoon, that late afternoon snack, they are plucking an orange or a tangerine or a mango or a pawpaw. So that's it. I feel like it's helpful for farmers to be growing all these things because they don't have to buy food. Buying food is expensive. I think Lindsay and Peter, you'll agree with me. When you cook, you spend little. When you when you buy, yeah.
I understand too well. So I think we have a few questions. I just want to ask one more question of selling locally, and then I think we're going to get to a few viewer questions. But Peter, lastly, as Charity describes the market before and after the forest garden approach, can you tell us, do farmers do business with multiple markets, with companies? Some do business with hotels. Tell us a little bit about how the forest gardens elevate the food access in a region.
One smart thing about the forest garden is just what you've just mentioned, opening up more opportunities for farmers to sell. So farmers are engaging multiple markets, are engaging other. We need tools to work on our forest garden. So there's somebody else out there who's making a hoe, somebody's making a machete, somebody is making a watering can. Farmers will need to buy those to work on their forest gardens. So they're also selling various things that they are harvesting from their forest garden. Some are selling to the food points, others selling to the dairy points, others are selling to the timber people, others are selling to those people who make the juices for the fruits harvested from the forest garden. So there's a diversity of market opportunities opened up by incorporating a lot of crops in your forest garden in a very good patterned way, which is through a good design led by the Trees for the Future forest garden approach. And in all these, making farmers are able to deal with a variety of people outside there who need products, who need raw materials for their own use in their companies, in their workplaces, and also the huge market that we have with now the urban community, because they are not farming, they need to eat, and they support a lot in the forest garden activities.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that recap, Peter, and Charity, thank you for sharing your stories. I know we have a few questions, so I want to get to those because we're going to try to finish up here in the next 5-7 minutes. Mila asks, how do you manage drought? And with the minimum monthly donation, how am I helping? So Peter, tell us, how do you manage drought? And then we can hit that other half of the question.
Drought means no rain, means no water. So there are technologies that we could use to make sure, at least in every other region, whether in a desert, in a humid area, some rains will always come over, and you'll have some moisture to store. So we using other technologies that will make sure that we manage the little water that we get. This is through few technologies that we want to embrace, like can you mulch your land very well and make sure that you store that little amount of water that will keep your plants growing. You're looking at the maturity period of a plant, like maybe you have a cabbage. A cabbage will mature in some 90 days. So can you store some moisture for 90 days to let the cabbage mature? So we have technologies like mulching, we have zai, we have cover crops that will make our soils moist, even if we don't have rains. We don't just depend on the rain itself, but the little that will come will help us move along. So incorporating new skills and technologies have come up very well to assist our farmers in managing those lean seasons, those dry seasons, and actually they are able to harvest in those harsh times, and that is when the price is. So when you're harvesting when everybody is asleep and waiting for the rains to come, this is where the money is, this is where the crop is.
Mm-hmm. And
yes.
And as we have more and more forest gardens in the world, more trees in the world, we see our climate and our weather patterns, even out, and we can look forward to more water collecting in groundwater stores, and more moisture in the forest gardens, as you mentioned, Peter, with mulching and other techniques. So it's really a positive cycle. And then as far as Mila's question about the Sustainer Circle monthly donations, Charity, would you like to share a little bit about how the donor community supports our work?
So first of all, Myla doesn't need to worry that there's a minimum. We don't have a minimum. She's doing great. Thank you so much for your donation. And you don't have to worry that it's too small, or it's still working, because you see, farmers are not only harvesting only to donate, they are harvesting every single month. They are coming in and they are growing things that are sustainable on their pieces of land. So they are not, yes, you are sending in this money, but it's still helping. It's making a difference. And I just want to say once again, thank you so much to all our donors. We appreciate, because you are the reason that we are here. You're the reason we are working with all these farmers. You're sustaining so many lives. You have no idea, because even in these hard times, you don't know how many farmers have gone through, just by joining this project. We are currently in our second lockdown, I think our second or third phase for COVID, but farmers are harvesting. I visited them just before we locked down again, and they were harvesting from their pieces of land. This goes to show you that when you give us money, when you're donating, it's not stopping at that month that you've given, or that amount. It's multiplying for these farmers. However small it is, it's making a difference in somebody's life somewhere far in Mount Elgon. Yeah.
Thank you, Charity. That's fantastic. And then I think we have one more question, and then we'll probably wrap it up. Pam, hi Pam. What changes in climate have you observed in the region lately, Pam asks, and how have they affected the development of forest gardens? I'm happy for either one of you to take that.
Yeah, thank you, Lexi, about climate change. Yeah, it's a real thing that things have changed from what we knew from the past. The rains are a bit late, or they are not just enough. So it is true. Many other diseases have come up which were not there initially. A lot of new pests that are facing farmers. So farmers have a huge challenge on how to deal with this climate change aspect. But a forest garden, when it is well designed and put very well, it kind of adopts a microclimate that makes everything work in tandem with what things need to be done. So we are not worried about reduced rainfall. You have enough moisture captured in your soil. You don't have to be worried about pests, because you're able to plant those other plants that will repel away your pest, that will cure your soil. So about new pests coming in, the integration of crops that will drive away pests, the integration of composting that will make sure that your soil is healthy and does not accommodate any pathogens, any diseases, that kind of addresses the issues of climate change. So the fact that the world is facing climate change, 1,000 forest gardens will like cure the problem, because things are still moving. Like Charity said, we are still harvesting, we are still selling, because we have that micromanaged climate under the forest garden approach. All these trees are capturing the moisture, they are shading the crops, they are making sure the soil have a lot of nutrients in them, and everything is growing. So it is an opportunity for people to adopt forest garden as a cure, as an address to these issues of climate change. So thousands of forest gardens might at some time make sure the climate change issue is no longer a thing to be discussed. Thank you.
And as forest gardens and trees sequester carbon and help improve the environment and help fight climate change, like you said, Peter, they're also mitigating climate change. So it's really tackling that problem on both ends of the spectrum. Well, I am so grateful for both of you for being here today, and to all of our audience members, thank you for tuning in. As Mila mentioned, she flagged the Sustainer Circle for us, and we absolutely want to remind all of you that the best way to support the work that we spoke about here today and help build Trees for the Future's reach and mission while continuing to support local efforts, farmer-led programs, locally trained and hired staff, locally sourced materials, native species, and supporting the local food system through local markets and local food access. The best way you can do that is to become a member of the Sustainer Circle. And that's just a monthly donation. As Charity said, it does not matter the amount. When we can count on your monthly donation, we are ensured that we can reach more people with the resources and the training they need to make all of this incredible change happen. And if you want to keep up with your impact, be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter. We also send emails periodically for events like this, and of course keep you up to date on all the impact that you're having. Please, I see a lot of familiar faces. Please let us know at info@trees.org if there's any topic that you'd like to cover in the future. August, we will be back with an anniversary themed live stream. We turn 32 in August as an organization, so we're very excited for that. So please let us know at info@trees.org if there's any particular topic that you want us to cover, and we'll be sure to put it on the schedule. Charity, Peter, thank you so much again for joining us. I really enjoyed talking with you both.
Thank you, Lindsay. It was a pleasure to talk to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a great one. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you. All right, everybody, be sure to sign up for Sustainer Circles, sign up for the newsletter, and let us know what you want to hear next at info@trees.org, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.